De Bello Gallico 5:26 and 27. Be aware, here's some tough grammar because Caesar's showing the untrustworthiness of these guys you see right here, the Aburines and Ambiorix. He's a bad guy because he's talking complex, like one of those tricky Roman politicians. All right, so let's begin and try and do it as sequential as we can. So around in 15 days, so probably about 3 weeks after the conference, on which days there was coming into winter quarters, right? So 15 days after they get to winter quarters, roughly, a sudden, the beginning of a sudden tumult or rebellion or uproar and defection and rebellion and of a rebellion genitive arose the opponent verb from ambiorix and catuolcos. You don't see catuolcos talk at all, but these are the kings of the small tribe of the Aburides, who cum plus subjunctive. This is probably although they had been at hand at the territories of their kingdom for Sabinus and kata, a dative with a compound verb, and they had carried in the frumentum, the grain in Hiberna, into winter quarters. However, even though they were real friendly at first, impulsi, having been pushed or impelled by the messengers of Intiutuomaris de Trevere. Now, what happened with him? He was trying to start a rebellion. Caesar put it to end, and now the guy's just like an outlaw, trying to encourage more rebellions. So, but they were pushed. They were pushed by the messages, perhaps. They enraged their own guys. They drew. This is who's they. This would, of course, be Ambiorix and Catawolocus. They kind of encouraged their guys, and all of a sudden, ablative absolute clause, with the woodcutters having been overwhelmed. These are the legionnaires who are going out to cut wood, probably to fortify the camp. They were having been oppressed by a great band of soldiers. Who's they? The Eburones, led by Ambiorix and Catawolocus, came supine to fight to the camp. Supine complement or purpose, right? So when quickly our boys, subjunctive, had seized their weapons and had ascended the wall of the camp, read the commentary, and ablative absolute clause, with the Spanish cavalry having been set out from one part of the camp, they had to become conquerors, right? In the horse battle, with the matter having been despaired of, at least by the Iberines, they wanted to beat them up and they couldn't. The enemies led their boys back from the besieging of the camp. That's when they're surrounding it. Then, suo more ablative manner, they shouted in their custom, ut, so that, indirect command almost, right? So that someone out of our boys would come forward ad colloquium to speak. Now, the rest is indirect statement clause here. That they, that's the Aburines, have something which they wish to say de communi, about the common matter. We just got in a fight. Let's explain why. By which things, ablative of means, they were hoping posse to be able minui to lessen the controversias, to lessen the controversy. Notice how complex the grammar is getting. That's because Caesar, when he's honest, is very straightforward. When he's talking about dishonesty, he gets complicated. All right. So what happens? That day, Mititor is sent. Who is sent? Gaius Arpinus, Roman knight. That means he's a what's the term? Ranking, social ranking, not necessarily a cavalryman. He's a friend of Quintus Titurius, or a family member of Quintus Titurius. He's a relative. And a certain Quidam, uh, Quintus Junius out of Spain. So he's a Roman Spanish guy who now, before, had been accustomed, venditare, to come back and forth, or frequentative, to Ambiorix at the mission of Caesar. So here we got two guys, Arpinius, who's just a friend of one of the commanders, and we got this guy who's of less social status, Quintus Junius out of Spain. But this guy had all the experience of coming back and forth, so he knew Ambiorix well. So let's keep on going. Spoke. Who spoke? Ambiorix spoke among them in this fashion. The rest is indirect statement clause and as complicated as all get out. So go to your infinitives. That he ought to confess, all right, to confess to them many things, very many things. You ought to say many things to him. Why? Why? Pro beneficis, on account of the benefits, good things of Caesar into him. This is into him, which would be Ambiorix. Because, first thing, he had been liberated by his work from the taxation which his neighbors, the Aduatuki, had been accustomed to, which he had been accustomed to pay to his neighbors, the Aduatuki. They were a noble tribe nearby. Caesar beat them up, so he didn't have to pay taxes anymore. And, quote, because, so these are causal clauses, because had been sent back. This is subjunctive because this is subordinate to that indirect statement. Because had been sent back who? Both his son and the son of his brother's, his nephew, had been sent back by Caesar to him. Well, where were these guys? Whom, having been sent, having been sent in the number of the hostages. All right, remember when you make treaties, you have to send hostages, whom the Atuatuki had held, subjunctive because it's subordinate and indirect statement clause, among them in servitude and chains. So the trouble was that you send out your relatives to be hostages, but they're supposed to be treated nice, and here they were being treated poorly. So, but Caesar had sent him back to them. So, nor now, and therefore, because he owed Caesar this much, here's the problem. He had done that thing. There you go. He had done that thing. He had not done that thing, which he did, namely about attacking of the camp. Either he had done it neither by his judgment or by his will, but by the compulsion of his own nation. And that here's a lie, of course, that his um power of them is not a result clause, not less he has right than the multitude has on him than he himself in the multitude. Complicated grammar. Basically, what he's saying in the result clause: I couldn't help myself, Caesar. I'm king, but they own me as much as I own them, and I was forced. Not Caesar. You two Roman guys. I was forced to do this. It's not my fault. Be aware anytime anyone ever attacks your camp and says it's not their fault, they're lying. All right, so that's the start of this. We got some problems. I wonder what's going to happen.